minutes, and there's been no notification to let them know what is happening.
I think we are going on live now. I think it's coming on.
Okay, and are you recording it?
Yes.
Okay, so let me take care of this real quick.
I think we are on Facebook Live. Can somebody check and
We
tell
are.
me?
We are.
Okay, please make sure your phones are on mute so we don't have calls coming in.
Put it on silent, not
Okay. So.
Hello, my friends. Good day. It's another rendezvous. We are sorry we are starting late. Life happens. We had technical difficulties today connecting to Facebook, but you all know life happens. So we are glad that finally we could connect. We are glad that finally we could connect to Facebook.
Yes.
Today, it's going to be a very exciting show. I am so proud and so happy to bring future today, our friend Mary Denise Michelle. And she will be talking on a very, very hot and interesting topic. I pray that you share, invite other people to listen, and listen to the end. I know we are already starting late. Hi, Bridget, you are also welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I know we are starting late, so I will just hand over to Mary to tell us a little bit about Mary. Who are you, Mary?
Hi. Hi, it's very nice to be on here today. Is that a reverb on my part? I sound like I'm echoing. I'm really glad that you have me on the show. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. My name is Mary Denise Mitchell, and I am an executive director with the John Maxwell team, but I'm also the founder of Mitchell Leadership Services and Consulting, where I help people that are currently going through or have gone through some kind of workplace discrimination and they want to change. Workplace discrimination is pretty prevalent, and I was one that endured workplace discrimination for a number of years, but I found a way out of it. And because of the experiences that I had and all the struggles, I am uniquely qualified to help other people get through that situation so that they can either, change their perspective so that they can do things differently or fight the system if they so choose. So, and I live in hot, very, very hot Arizona, where ice cream melts as soon as you take it outside of the freezer.
Thank you so much, Mary, and we are so glad to have you on this show today. The privilege, it's all ours to have you on this show. And it's not a coincidence that this discussion and this interview with you, it's happening at a time when discrimination is the talk of the day. Mm-hmm. Somebody would think that we just programmed it because of what is happening, but I think it was a pleasant coincidence that we had planned to talk on this, and then the situations now in the US came up just to tie with what you have to say. Mm-hmm. So before we go on, I do believe that sometimes people decide to fight against something because they have experienced that issue in their life and they do have experience to handle it. Could you share with our audience why you are so passionate about this topic?
Well, I'm passionate about it because I'm passionate about transparency, truth, and transformation. Too often we live in a society where there is no transparency. We work in organizations where there is no transparency. It's that authoritarian, do as I say, doesn't matter what it costs, what it's going to take, you're going to do what I say. And they don't share the information as to why certain things are happening the way that they are. And then people don't tell the truth. And when you don't tell the truth, that's when things just exacerbate and you end up with a situation where everybody's going, what is happening here? And that's kind of what we're seeing right now in this fight for justice. The death of George Floyd, it is tragic, and my heart goes out to his family and his friends and his loved ones. But despite what his record was, despite what the circumstances were in his life at that moment, it wasn't justified for him to be treated the way that he was treated. And that's what we do in work, right? When we're being discriminated against at work, when we're being told that our ideas are not good enough, or we get that little, oh yeah, good job, yeah. Or they steal our ideas and they make it their own, or, they make those subtle comments like, oh, where are you from? Oh, well, what are you talking about? I don't understand what you're saying. It's all those little things that lead to that discomfort in being at work. And then people don't take a stand for it, right? They just let it happen. And for example, for I want to say it was about 10 years, 10, 11 years, I was discriminated against at work, but I didn't see it as discrimination for myself. I just saw it as these folks don't like me. I have to prove myself. I have to be smarter than they are. So I have to know more, and I have to like constantly be on top of the regulations. I have to be on top of all of my paperwork, dot all my I's, cross all my T's, and never forget anything about that. And then you've got the people that are watching that and they're like, well, so and so doesn't have to do what you're doing. Why is that? Well, so and so doesn't have to go through that. And I just listened, and it's like, well, it's because that's just the way it is. It's because I'm Mary. And if anything bad's going to happen, it's going to happen to Mary. That's what I used to believe. I really believed that for a long time. And a lot of that came from my childhood and the things that I was taught when I was a child. And that's where the discrimination started for me, was in my childhood, but I didn't recognize it as discrimination.
Thank you so much for that summary of what we are going to be talking about. This is the first time that I hear somebody who actually decides to be a discrimination advocate. What do you mean by that?
Well, I've been an advocate pretty much 28 years, maybe 29. And I started with child abuse. Then I went into sexual abuse. Then I went into domestic violence. Then I went into sexual assault. And, I went through all the gamuts of advocating for people, because a lot of people don't know how to advocate for themselves. They don't know. They don't know what they don't know. They don't know how to move themselves out of that situation. And so I became an advocate. And as I started looking at what I was going to do with my life and what came after my career with this organization that I was with, I thought, what am I going to do what am I going to do for the rest of my life? This is all I've ever known. And so, of course, I dabbled in this and I dabbled in that. I'm going to be this kind of a coach and I'm going to be that kind of a coach. And then one day, it was about a month ago, actually. Yeah, it's been about a month that God woke me up, and I'm a woman of faith, so I do not intend to offend anybody in your audience if they don't have the same belief system that I do. We're all entitled to our own belief systems, but I am a woman of faith, and my teachings and my sayings come from that belief that I have with my faith. God woke me up for, I want to say 3 nights in a row at precisely 3:02 a.m. I would be in a deep sleep, and then all of a sudden he'd be like, boop, and I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm like, really? So I'd read my Bible, and God woke me up to Isaiah 38, chapter 17, where King Hezekiah was basically thanking God because he wasn't going to die. He had been really sick and was on his deathbed, and then he was miraculously healed. And he told God, all the things that I've been through, I was meant to go through them. I was meant to do this, and I got through it. And I thought, okay, God, I hear you loud and clear. All the experiences that I've had myself of being discriminated against, I need to put that to use, and I need to advocate for others, and I need to teach them how to advocate for themselves. I need to teach them how to document their information, how to change their perception of themselves and the situation so that they can not suffer from all the health issues that come about suffering in a workplace environment that's very toxic.
Thank you so much, Mary. I hear you and I can feel you because we all do go through some sort of discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is we have been trained to keep quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you speak into this?
Mm-hmm. We've trained to be quiet. I like the way you said that. We've been trained to stay quiet. That's the same thing as complicity. Complicit. I have been complicit. You have been complicit. Everybody has been complicit in one way or another, whether it's not saying something when you see that an employee or a coworker or anybody is being mistreated at work. And so, for example, one of the greatest ways of discrimination, and it's kind of like workplace bullying, like I like to liken it to the childhood playground. You go from the playground. If you're the bully in the playground, you're going to be the bully in the boardroom. If you were targeted as a child on the playground, you're going to be targeted as an adult in the workplace. That's the only way that I can correlate it sometimes. And you look at it happening to somebody and you don't say anything. You just turn your head. Somebody's gossiping about somebody. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. You're just yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. But you're not saying, you know what? No, that's not okay. You don't talk about that person like that. You don't know that person. You don't know what they're going through, but you just let them keep talking bad about that person. We're complicit. I was complicit in my own discrimination. And some people might be like, what is this crazy woman talking about? But the reality is, I allowed it to happen for a long time. I allowed it to happen. I allowed them to treat me differently because I wasn't strong enough to stand up for myself because it's the fear. Well, if I say something, I'm going to lose my job. If I say something, it's just going to get worse. If I say something, you start imagining all these terrible things that are going to happen to you. And so you don't say anything. It's like being in an abusive relationship. You don't get out because of the fear of what's going to happen if you get out. And it's the same way in the workplace when you're dealing with that kind of discrimination. You just stay quiet. Other people stay quiet because they don't want to get involved. I mean, how many times have you been in that position? Yeah, just it's none of my business. I don't want to get involved. But then you go home at night and you replay what happened and then you start to feel really, really bad. Do you do anything about it the next day? Most people don't.
Thank you so much. And I want to acknowledge some of our guests who are watching the show. We have Roger Nelson watching. We have Pasekin watching. Brenda Jenga from Cameroon. Thank you so much, Brenda. Sama Ambe watching from Cameroon. Thank you so much, honey. Thank you for always being there to support me. So, Mary, I hear you and I know you are so passionate about this discrimination. And I want to know, when did you start feeling that you were being discriminated upon? I know you have a very exciting childhood where a lot of things happen. Could you let in the audience into your past? Because when people understand where you are coming from, then they can know where you are going to.
So I was adopted as a child by a couple that obviously they couldn't have children. So I want to say almost a year old when they adopted me. Well, when I was 4 years old, my adoptive father passed away. And at that time, my adoptive mother decided she didn't want me. I mean, she never wanted me to begin with. But she just tolerated it because it was what her husband wanted. And so when he passed, she actually tried to send me back to the adoption agency. And she's told me this. Yeah, I tried to send you back, but they wouldn't take you back, and then the family wouldn't let me give you up either. So I got stuck with you type situation. And so I grew up with that, knowing that number one, I wasn't wanted, but a lot of it had to do with her telling me that I was too dark. I was too dark, and it wasn't okay to be dark. When I was younger, she used to bleach, put the bleaching creams on me, thinking that that would like take the blackness off of me. And my hair would get straightened all the time. I can't tell you how many times I had the chemical stuff put in my hair. And if I went to the salon one time, and I don't remember the gentleman's name, but I know it was a guy. He cut my hair, and I walked out looking like a poodle because he had told her that if he put a perm in my hair, it would counteract the natural thick curly hair that I already had. And when I walked out, like I remember looking like a poodle. And I wish I had the photos of that time, but all of that is lost to me. But she told me for many years that I was just too black. Nobody was going to want me. That I had to create my life in the white person's world because that was the only way that I would survive in life. And her dream was for me to marry a white man that was a doctor, a lawyer, or someone in one of those types of professions where I would have everything that I would ever want in life. Well, yeah, things didn't kind of work out the way she wanted because I married a black man anyways and had myself three beautiful, beautiful chocolate dark children. And so with each child, and I left home when I was 18, and I actually had to move in with my former husband. Now I had to move in with his family because I didn't have anywhere else to go, and he was actually in the military and he was away at basic training. And so I ended up living with his family for a few months. And right when I met him, and we've been together since I was 15 years old, and so 3 years later, right, I remember the way we met was because his sister beat me up on the bus. Like his sister tore my butt up on the bus. And so I think he just felt sorry for me. Yeah. Yeah. So, that was my first introduction into what living in the Black culture was like, was being involved with him and his family. And because of the way I was raised to be proper, to talk white. So when people would hear me on the phone and then see me in person, they'd be like, yeah, you're not what we expected. Yeah, I kind of figured as much. And his family used to call me bougie. And I used to get so mad because they'd call me bougie because I'm like, I'm not bougie. But, the reality is when I think back on that time in my life, yeah, I was bougie because I'm still a little on the bougie side because I like really good stuff.
Thank you so much. Bridget, I don't know if you have a question for Mary before we go ahead.
Yeah, I thank you for that. My name is Bridget Michaels, and Mary, I'm so fascinated about your story, and it's very touchy. What could you remember at that point when you were a child and all of these things were happening to you? How did you feel? Because you're telling this story right now. I'm sitting here watching, the viewers are watching as a child. You must have been having conflicting thoughts, right? Because now you don't understand why you are Black, and another why someone else is asking you to be white. Did you ever at any point ask? And how did you feel?
I don't remember how old I was when I had the conversation with my adopted mother about, you know, where I actually came from, what was my makeup, because it was something that we weren't allowed to talk about. If I even dared to bring up that I wanted to search for my biological family, it turned into it turned into a nightmare for me. So I just learned to stop asking. But I know that I felt different. I felt like I didn't belong. Um, I know that I had cousins and aunts and uncles that absolutely adored me and loved me and would have taken me in if they could have, but Mary was very territorial and wouldn't let me go with anybody. Um, but it wasn't, I want to say when I started becoming a teenager is when I really started noticing that there was definitely something off. There was something off about me, because I wasn't like the white girls in school and I wasn't like the Black girls in school and I wasn't like the Hispanic girls in the school. So I didn't know what I was. And I went through a series of emotions and, trying different things. I went through my little period where I was like, I'm gonna be bad. I'm gonna do this. But yeah, no, I chickened out most of the time and just went back to doing what I was supposed to do because I didn't want to get into any more trouble. And when I got married, she told me that I would not, that because I was marrying a Black man, that my children were going to suffer for it. And when my firstborn was born, he came out very light skinned, and she said, "Oh, he's going to be great in life because he's white, he's very light, and as long as you keep him with those people, they'll be fine." And mind you, I am 18 years old, almost. Yeah,
Oh no.
I was 18 years old when I had him, and I'm thinking, really? Okay, mom, whatever. Then I have my second son, and he came out very dark. Like he took on his father's features and characteristics. And she saw him and she told me, "Oh, he's Black. He's going to end up, a thug type situation. You've got Oreo children." Like she called my children Oreo cookies. And at this point, I was 20. And so my mind is starting to recognize that, okay, there is something inherently wrong with this woman. And because I had an opportunity to leave the state, because again, I was married to a soldier. So I got to travel to different places and meet other people and get involved in different cultures. I started recognizing, yeah, this something's not right here. So by the time I had my daughter when I was 25, she came out, you know, mocha colored, beautiful mocha colored. And I remember taking her to my mother and telling her, you see this child right here? You will never get to know who she is because you always want to categorize my children. And I wanted a mother daughter relationship with you for so long that now I have my own daughter. I don't need to have a relationship with you. And she said, well, take all your Oreo cookie children and go. And so that was the last time I ever saw her when I introduced her to my daughter. And my daughter was just a baby when I introduced her. I think she was like 6 months old. And
Thank you so
so,
much, Mary, about that. I really appreciate that. But one more question that I have for you is, I know there are parents here that are watching right now, or we see this replay later. And I know there must be some adopted parents who are adopting children from mixed cultures. What will you say to the parents, one, and also to that child who is having a lot of conflict about their personality?
for the child to not have the conflict, the parents have to understand everything about that child's culture. That is a must. They have to understand and they have to teach that child about that culture. I wasn't taught about the African American culture when I was a child. I didn't learn it until, like I said, I married, my husband. But if the child is going to have any sense of peace about who they are as an individual, they have to know and understand, and their parents have to embrace that culture and not just make them whatever race that they are when they adopt a child that is not like them. And for the child, I would say keep an open mind, observe, do your own research, your own reading to find out, make friends, get to know other people that look like you. Don't just stick with the people that look like your parents. Stick with people that look like you. Get to know them, become friends with them, and like I said, just research the stuff that you need to research because every child, I've spoken with a few adopted children, and interestingly enough, I found my biological family, and it has grown exponentially, and I found a brother who was born, I want to say 5 years after me, maybe later, who was also given up for adoption. We had the same dad, but we had different moms. And he was raised in an African American family, through and through. And so then when he meets me and we hit it off, it's like if we'd have been together, we would have been inseparable our entire lives. But he had the same kind of questions, like, where do I come from? Who am I? Who are my biological parents? And his family was very supportive. His adoptive parents were very supportive, and they never made him feel like he was doing something wrong by wanting to know more. Me, I couldn't ask about that. I mean, the one time I asked, where do I find my biological parents? My face got slapped. And I was treated like I had committed a crime because, oh, you ungrateful, da 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 da. I'd given you everything, da 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 da. And you want to go find the woman that threw you away like garbage, And so then you hear the words, threw me away like garbage. Oh my God, well, I must be garbage. So all these things just start going through your mind. And so when people are treating you badly in other places, all those things that you were taught as a child, the things that you were told as a child, they start to surface. And you start to believe that, well, yeah, okay, well, I'm garbage. Nobody, that's why they treat me the way they do. So, let me just keep my head down, and do a good job, let me just do a good job. And that's not the way to live.
Thank you so much, Mary. And I'm so appreciative of the fact that you could come online and share your story. Remember, my voice, your voice is a platform for authentic conversation. And I want to be very thankful for your authentic self and your vulnerability.
Thank
I
you.
know for everything, one thing I discovered when I spoke with you was everything about you has a story, like your names. Can you tell us why you have three names, Mary?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Sorry.
So the first, I want to say 40 years of my life, I was called a Denise. Like that was my name, Denise. That's what I answered to. That's how I signed my name. That's how I did everything. And then when I was going through a really tough period in my life where, I lost my marriage of 24 years, my children were in various states of, I don't know, trying to find themselves crazy because, they're becoming young adults. They were 18 and 19. I think my daughter was 14 when the divorce happened. So she was going through her own conflicts. And so all of that coupled with the work stuff I was going through, it was like, I got to go. And I did. I literally took a job in Germany and I packed up everything. And my son, my middle son said, Mom, he said, it's the kids that are supposed to fly the coop, not you. You're flying the coop. Yep, sure am. I'm going to go find myself. I'm going to go do something different in life. And so I went to Germany. December 31st was when I flew out. And I stopped in, I want to say I was in Minneapolis airport and got through the bookstore. And it was a long flight. And I knew I still had like 10, 12 hours to fly. And I bought this book called 15 Laws of Invaluable Growth. And that's what led me to start finding who I was and understanding myself. I mean, it's the greatest personal development book in the world. And I went to Germany, I did my thing there, and then I came back to Alaska where I was going back to work at the same job that I had left before. And I knew there were going to be some challenges because, the environment, the culture hadn't changed any, and I knew that. And I thought, well, I'm going to come back and I'm going to be Mary because I owned my name now. See, I didn't go by Mary. I would get mad when people would call me Mary because it started off with Mary, Mary, quite contrary. How does your garden grow? Or Mary had a little lamb. Or the biggest reason was because that was my adopted mother's name. And I didn't want to be anything like her. And so I then embraced the name Mary and was called Mary for 8 years. Yeah, about 8 years. And then when I went through this discrimination thing at work and I broke free from it, I then stepped into my full power and said, my name is Mary Denise. I am Mary Denise. That is who I am. I cannot get rid of my past, but I can sure as heck build my future. And I can build it as Mary Denise.
There is one thing that you said when you got into your power. For me, that is very strong because we go through life without getting into our power.
Mhm.
Can you shed some light on that and maybe explain to our audience how you can get into your power? Because unless you get into your power, you will not know who you are.
Mhm.
You will live a life of, you live like a shadow, not knowing who you really are. So
Mhm.
I'd like you to speak into that.
So finding your power starts with acknowledging that the life that you are living, the conditions and circumstances that you're currently going through don't have to be that way. That you have the ability to change that. I have a mentor that taught me belief drives behavior. It took me a long time to understand fully what he was talking about until about a year ago. And it was like, oh my God, that's what he was trying to tell me. Belief drives behavior. Everything that I believed about myself drove the decisions that I made, the actions that I took, the behaviors that I displayed. And so once I learned that, it was like, boom, the confetti flying, falling down. It's like, yes, okay, I can make better decisions now. And so that's how I stepped into my power. But I started by going on a personal growth journey. And that's not something that we're taught to do when we're in school. Nobody talks about personal growth and development. They talk about you go to school, you graduate, you go to college, you buy a house. Well, you get married, you buy a house, you have 2.5 kids, which I never understood where the point 0.5 comes from, but it is what it is. That's what they tell us. You have the dog and you work the same job for 20 years and then you retire. That's what they teach us, but they don't teach us how to be, they don't teach us how to be human beings. They don't teach us how to grow our personal power. how to be, do, and have the things that we really want. It's like we live life by default instead of by design. We have the power to design the life that we want. But in order to do that, you have to step into your power and accept that there are certain things that you have to change subconsciously. And when I did that, I actually started with the whole I watched the movie, what was it called? Runaway Bride with Julia Roberts. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that movie or has heard of it, but if you have not seen it, I encourage you to watch that movie. It is a really good chick flick. Like it's a good chick flick. But in it, she is the bride, and she has 4 engagements, 4 fiancés, and the day that she's going to walk down the aisle, she bolts because she gets scared. She doesn't want to tie herself down to the one person for the rest of her life. And then she meets the guy, but she's fighting all the emotions and everything. And so she realizes she has to find herself. So then she starts doing all the things, and it started with her eggs. She started finding out, oh my God, I don't like those kind of eggs. I don't like that, because whoever she was with, she loved everything they did and she turned it into her own. That's my favorite. So for me, my favorite color when I was growing up, I said was green. The whole marriage, it was green. You'd walk into my house, I had everything green in there. But the reality was that I didn't like the color green. My favorite color is red. My favorite color is red. I found out that I liked country music. I didn't like rap. I didn't really care for it. I liked country music. I learned that I liked to eat broccoli. I learned that I like to eat escargot. Like I started trying all these different things. I learned that I like to sleep on the left side of the bed and not the right side of the bed. And sometimes I like to sleep in the middle of the bed.
Oh, no, I know.
These are the kind of things that I started learning about myself. And I started to learn how to write and express my feelings and put it all in writing and just get rid of all that discomfort and the feelings of sadness that I had by putting it down and then being able to burn it if I chose to. But you have to grow into your personal power in order for you to be, do, and have what you want in life. And then that's how you can stop the things that are happening at work. You get that ability to stand up and stop being complicit and say, you know what? No, you're not going to treat me that way. No, you're not going to, I am going to hold you accountable for your actions. And we don't do that very often in society. We don't hold people accountable for their actions. We just let them do what they're going to do. I can't hear you, Rene, Anita. You're muted.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, I live near the airport. So sometimes when I hear the flights coming, I mute myself so I don't disturb the conversation. So as I was saying, I want to appreciate Laura Tazop watching, Bengu David from Cameroon. Thank you so much, Mary Ngwa. And we welcome questions. Mary is open to answer questions. If you have a question you want to ask Mary, type it on the comments and we are going to read it out and Mary will answer the question for you. Mary, you talked about self-discovery and moving into your power. That is something which I like so much. And it is not static, it is dynamic because you keep moving into this. It is not like you move into at one time and you certainly know, you suddenly know everything about you. No, as you are on the journey of self-development and personal growth, you discover that there are a lot of things that you can move into. I just listened to Dr. A. Aru Bernard. He is a reputable preacher in New York. And he was saying that most often we think that purpose is static. It's not static, it's dynamic because you have several purposes in life. And I would like to share, just of recent, I came to realize something. I just graduated with my master's in public administration. And you know what? I almost did not graduate with that master's. Why? Because I got so angry at a certain point and decided to quit. Why? I did my thesis and I gave to my supervisors. They did all the corrections that were on it. And for me, I looked at it as they just don't like me. Why? I felt that I have given them all they needed. And so they shouldn't tell me to rewrite. I was so angry. I kept the thesis for close to 3 months. Then I started reading about mindset. And I stumbled on Dr. Carol Dweck's book. If you haven't read that book, I bet you, go get a copy. So there she talks about mindset. And she talks about the fact that there are two kinds of mindset. You have the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. And most of us are in the fixed mindset. An example is an intelligent student just expects to pass the exam. The student expects to get the A grade because he or she feels that I'm intelligent and so I can do it. But an average student most often has a growth mindset. And that growth mindset says, even though this is a bit difficult, I know that if I put in effort, I will be able to do it. That was an aha moment for me because that was a fixed mindset in which I found myself. That was why I thought that the professors were not treating me nice. So when I got that aha moment, it was 2 days to the closing date for me to submit my draft. I sat on my table for a whole day. And when I put on my growth mindset, the edits that I did myself on that paper, I was so ashamed of myself after I did it. Because I now saw that there was a lot to change on that paper. Why did I see this? Because I moved from the fixed mindset into a growth mindset. I moved from the mindset that tells me, you are enough, you can do this. So you need to put more effort to be better. That is one of the reasons why we started this platform. It is not about you, it is not about me. We are not here to victimize anybody or to shame anybody. We are here to share our personal stories because we believe that stories tell a story. Stories can inspire people. There are people who have beautiful and amazing stories in them, but what is keeping them behind? Fear. They are afraid. And I saw somewhere, and fear was defined as forget everything and run. And I'm like, oh my God, that is what we have been doing. I am bringing this because that is what we face with this issue of discrimination. We all face it, even though we don't talk. When we were talking with Bridget the other day, we said, one of the things which we feel like we are discriminated upon in the US is our accent. When you speak, somebody tells you have an accent. And sometimes they may want to make it look nice, like, oh my gosh, you have a beautiful accent. Where do you come from? So they make you lose your voice because they want to make you feel less because you have an accent. But I have learned to tell them that I have an accent because I come from Africa. And my accent defines who I am. If you leave the US and go to Africa, you will also have an accent. And so I am not ashamed of having an accent because, like we said the other day, in Africa, we have other patois. And my husband is a linguist. He will tell you that some of these patois, they even affect your pronunciation. Until you really do English to a certain level, this always come into play. But that will not keep me down. Do you have something to say, to advise us about this issue of, oh, you have a beautiful accent. Oh, your accent, where do you come from? Of course, when people say it, I look at them, I know they are just reminding me that I'm from Africa. But for me, it's okay. That's complacency, right?
So one of the things that I would tell you is I would look at them and I'd say, what? I have an accent? No, really? I thought that was you that had the accent. Why do you have the accent? Turn it around on them. Like, really? I mean, I shared earlier, I have a very distinct sound when I talk. especially if I'm on the phone. So if you've never met me in person or seen a picture of me, you would assume by listening to me that I was a white person. And so when I would show up for job interviews or I would show up for whatever, they'd be like, um, I know you weren't expect. I know you were expecting the white chick, weren't you? No, you getting this chocolate caramel right here. I can do just as good a job as anybody. You know, you just turn it around because that's part of that complicity. If we don't say something or turn it into humor goes a long way, right? And look how you reacted when I said, really, I have an accent, I thought it was you. You know, you see how it broke that moment, and it makes you stop and think and go, oh, okay. You know, and the other thing drove me crazy, still drives me crazy to this day, is when complete strangers walk up to me and they want to touch my hair. It has taken me 49 years to love my hair. I used to hate having curly hair. I would cut my hair off in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat, I would shave it off so that it would not be curly. I would relax it up until I was in my probably 20s, late 20s, and then I stopped relaxing it. But when people come up to me and they just want to touch my hair or they want to touch my daughter's hair, oh my gosh, my daughter has that pure what I call African hair. And by the way, just so your audience knows, if you've never done a DNA test like through Ancestry or 23andMe, it will tell you what your ethnicity breakdown is. And when I did mine, because again, I've always thought that I was, I knew that I had black in me because my biological father is African American, but my biological mother is a white Hispanic. Her father was an Indian, and her mother her mother was Irish. And so, dynamic, I have all this blood flowing through me. And as a matter of fact, I'm pulling up my results right now. I had read them to you earlier when we were first talking, but according to this, I am sub-Saharan African, 44.8%. And I was like, wow, and I don't know a lot about that part of my history still. Like, I need to go in and I need to dig into it and I need to understand it better. And so my daughter, she has that thick, you can't stick your fingers through her hair. You can't do anything with it because it's so thick and tight.
That's like mine.
But people will walk up to her to touch her hair, and it irritates me. It irritates me that, people would ask me, oh, well, where are you from? My mother's womb? No, like, no, I mean, like, where are you from? I'm from the planet Earth. Like, what do you want me to say? What kind of answer are you looking for? I'm a human being. That's what I am. And I have mixed blood flowing through me. And at the time, I used to just say I'm black and white. But through this ancestry thing, I found out that I'm not just black and white. I'm also got some Indian blood flowing through me. I've got some Asian blood flowing through me. Like, it's like, oh, I'm a melting pot of people. That's why I have such an interesting life.
I know.
and just so your audience understands, my adoptive mother was a white Hispanic. And yes, January of this year was the first year that I openly admitted in a room full of people when I was doing a speaking engagement that she was a racist. And I didn't want to admit that for a long time because of the shame that I felt, thinking that, my God, I was raised by a racist. Like, at the end of the day, I was raised by a racist woman. And
Thank
why?
God you are not a racist.
But I'm not. I love all people. My children were taught to love all people for who they were, not to look at just the color of their skin, but to look at their character. It's the character that is what matters. It's not the color or the appearance or anything like that. But as a society, that's what we have been taught to look at. And so now I have, and all three of my children, they grew up to have varied interest, and they all married people that did not look like them. And so now all of my grandchildren are different shades of the world, and it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't have it any other way.
So, Mary, I know you are a coach. If you want to help people, what kind of people are you helping? So, somebody listening to this recording
Well,
would want to
so
contact you.
I used to say, I help everybody. I will help anybody and everybody because that's what an advocate does. Like, I love everybody. I take them all in and I like try to solve all their problems. And sometimes I won't sleep for a day or two because I'm trying to help solve problems. But I've had to learn that no, I can't just help everybody because people have to be willing to help themselves too. And there are people out there that they just want the answers. They don't want to do the work to dig deep within themselves to find out what it is that they really truly want. And so within the last month, I was finally able to narrow it down to what is my purpose? What has God called me to do? And all the stuff that I have endured in life, God wants me to work with people that are being discriminated at work or that are either currently being discriminated on or they have been discriminated against. He wants me to work with the people that help the people that are being discriminated against because it's a tough system. I mean, you see what's happening in our world right now. It is a systemic problem and it starts in the home. What your beliefs are, what your biases are, and once you're able to identify that in your own home, in your nucleus family, and then in your extended family, then it can start working in the churches. It can start working in the institutions. It can start working in the healthcare. And more importantly, it can work in the government. But it starts with us looking inwards to us and what our biases are. And that is what my goal is. I work with people is to help them break through those biases that they have so that they understand that they don't have to put up with that behavior. They don't have to be afraid to stand up and say, that is not okay. I had people that were so supportive of me, and I didn't even know that they would be supportive when I was going through my case. Like, I had no idea, but I had several people that came forth and they said, no, this is what I witnessed. This is what happened to her. This is what happened to him. This is what happened. This is the story. People came out in such support that I was overwhelmed with emotion because there were people that wanted to do something, but they were afraid to do something because, again, I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to be picked on. I don't want to be passed over for promotion. I don't want. And so everybody just keeps quiet. And I want to help people stop being quiet.
Thank you so much. How can you relate what you are talking about with what is happening now in the US concerning the death of George Floyd and all the
Well, it's one of
things that
those
have happened within this time?
it's one of those never again moments, right? It's like never again will I do this. Never again will I sit there and allow someone to devalue me. Never again will I allow someone to dictate how I'm going to conduct my life. Never again am I going to be silent. We've had too much silence. That's why we have so many protests throughout the world. I mean, 18 countries have gotten behind the United States and supported in protesting. 18 countries in all 50 states held protest of some form because his death was the straw that broke the camel's back. That's what that represents. I've been reading, different things, and that's the thing. People need to educate themselves. They need to read for themselves, not just believe everything that the media is saying, because the media is biased. They're there to get ratings. The more people they can get watching their show, the better. The more people that are reading their newspaper, the better. But it takes us as individuals to do our homework and do our research and understand that his death signifies that it's time for the system to change. We've lost so many lives, so many Black lives. And people, I've been reading, I had a friend that posted something on my wall one day and it really made me think. And she said, Black lives matter. Yes. White lives matter. Yes. Hispanic lives matter. Yes. All lives matter. But What makes this so significant is that the Black lives are the ones that are in danger.
We
And
are the endangered species.
we are the endangered species, have always been the endangered species. So we just have to learn to come out of our own, even as our race, even my race, my portion of the African American race that resides in me has to stop. Well, you know, they've always treated me that way. It's always been like this. It's always going to be like that. No, change your tune. Change your tune and stop living in the past and start creating a future.
Mary, I must say at this point, do you realize that the Black man, the Black woman, the Black youth, the Black child has to do oftentimes even 10 times more than the average white person to be able to be successful in life? Can you please address this?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at what's happening, you know, like take the coronavirus, for example.
Yeah.
Out of all the deaths, and I don't know the statistics because I haven't looked into it. I've just been reading bits and pieces of the information that is being, you know, put out there. But if you look at the number of deaths that have happened in America, the majority of the deaths are for the people that are of color. They're the ones that are getting the virus the most. They're the ones that are dying the most. And a lot of that goes to the fact that we don't have the right health care, because guess what? We don't have the job that requires us to be able to afford the health care. We don't have, some of us don't have the education that we need to be able to get those higher paying jobs. And even if we do have the education, if you're a Black female, you're still going to get paid less than your white female counterpart. That's just the way it is, because that's the way it's always been. And that's what we have to change. But I know when I was in school, I had to work twice as hard for my grades. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this interview, at work, I had to be the smartest person in the room. Like I had to know everything so that I could not be called out or told, you know, you're stupid, or well, that's dumb. But guess what? It still happened. You know, you still get dismissed, you still get discriminated against, and you're still made to feel inferior in your position. And the same applies in school. If you are in a school and you're not, you know, you're struggling with the class, you may not be able to get that tutor because you can't afford the tutor. Or you don't have the time to get that tutor because guess what? When you get home, your mom has to go to work now because you're in a single family. And now it's time for your mom to go to work to do what she needs to do. And you got to stay home with your younger siblings to help them. And so you don't have that time necessarily, you know, and I can't really speak to that because I didn't have that experience. But the experiences that have been shared with me have been that, you know, I couldn't do certain things in school because, you know, after school, I had to hurry up and get home because my mom was a single mom and I had to help her. We're not afforded the same thing.
That is what we call systemic racism.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we talk about racism, there are some folks that still think that that happened 400 years ago. Mm-hmm. But systemic racism, that is what is happening. Mm-hmm. All of us have the opportunities, but the means to get to the opportunity for some group of people, it's different. Mm-hmm. Like in Africa, all the children go to schools, but when they come back, the boy is in the house and the girl has to follow the mother to the farm and assist the mother to look for firewood, come back and assist the mother to cook, while the boy has time to read. But then they are going to tell you, oh, we sent the two of them to school. Mm-hmm. Yes, you sent the two of them to school, but did you create an enabling environment mm-hmm. for them to be able to benefit the same? Mm-hmm. So that's what we are talking about, this mm-hmm. systemic racism. And until you take time to understand what it is, you continuously refuse that there is no racism, and mm-hmm. there is racism. That's why the whole world is rioting. It's not all because of George Floyd. It's because there are a lot of people who can relate mm-hmm. to this. That's why people are on the street. So I want to thank you so much, Mary. Mary, Bridget, and myself, we are all executive directors with the John Maxwell team. and we are all coaches. I coach on mindset because that's the area I love. So Mary has her website. We are going to put her website on the comment box so that if you want to contact Mary, feel free to contact Mary. If you want Mary to come and speak, all of us are speakers. Just let us know. We are always available. Like I said, My Voice, Your Voice is a platform for authentic conversation. We are here to share our stories and to allow people learn from our challenges. Mary, if I may ask you one last question is, what is the lesson that you took the longest to learn?
The lesson that took me the longest to learn was the one of acceptance. It was acceptance, accepting myself for who I was and what I was capable of.
Good. So thank you so much. We all do have our failures. We all do have our challenges. But like Bridget will also always say, failure, she loves failure because failure gives her an opportunity to learn. So we are all in a program, Future Proof to 2020, which is so interesting. And one of the things which we are expected to do is to think about our never again moments. So what is your, I know there are so many, but can you share with us?
I have two primary never again moments. Never again will I allow anybody to devalue me. And never again will I put myself in a situation where I have to depend on someone else to get anything done.
Thank you so, so much. I am so happy that you accepted to be on our platform. And do share this on your page, encourage people. We are always here every Sunday, 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. West African time. We want to really appreciate those who are watching from West Africa. Thank you so much. Share, send us your questions. Even if you are watching this and as a replay, put a question there. We can always get Mary to come back and answer questions. Mary is somebody who is so selfless and she has a heart for helping people. So she won't mind coming back just to answer your questions and help you wherever you want to go. So we always say that we offer free coaching sessions, 30 minutes free coaching sessions. If there's a particular thing you want us to talk about, contact any of us. We will be ready to offer you a free 30 minutes coaching session. Because like coaches, we believe that the answers are always in you. You just need to be made consciously aware of the answers. Don't be left behind. Fear, like I said, is forget everything and run. Don't do that. They are just false evidence appearing real. Stand up, get into your power, claim your power. Because when you claim your power, you'll be able to live a life of freedom. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you, Bridget, for co-hosting. Thank you, Mary. You are just so sweet. I love you so much, my friend. Thank you
for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will not keep you too long. It's almost the top of the hour, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, it's 8 minutes above the top of the hour, and we want to be respectful of your time. So we call on you to share this, because there are some of you who started watching in the middle. I want to tell you that the beginning was something that you don't want to miss. Watch it, organize watch parties on your Facebook page so that people can learn. Thank you very much. It has been My Voice, Your Voice.
Rene, can I say something, please?
Okay.
I just want to say a huge, huge thank you to Sama Ambe. Look at what he said. He said, until humanity learns to see God in every human being, God may have to recreate this in order to reshape the minds of those who haven't yet realized that man is not color. Until now, I am yet to see a white man and a black man. The colors are barely ideological constructs. To me, that's great. That's a good close-up.
Thank you so much, Sama, for
Absolutely.
rounding up this discussion in that one paragraph. We appreciate you very much. And thank you. Oh, Mary, I forgot to tell you, Sama is my husband. He's my first cheerleader. So
Good.
Now he's my best friend.
And he's Jake's best friend. And of course, he will be your best friend because he just loves all my friends. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.